when I say justice for generations, I mean just that. And if you know me, you know I just had a baby 11 weeks ago. Woo! So we literally had a baby on the campaign trail and kept on running because that's what we have to do to protect justice for generations to come. We must protect our future. And so I'm here today asking you to bubble in Bernstein and Bolden wherever we are on your ballot. Straight ticket will not get it. You have to bubble in Bernstein and Bolden in order for your vote to count. And I know what you're thinking. Well, let me raise your hand if you've already turned in your absentee ballot. Okay.
Now I'm voting in person.
So I know what I just said, and you're thinking, wait a minute, I voted straight ticket, and I don't think I voted for anything else. What do I do? Did you know that you could go to your local clerk's office and spoil your ballot if you did not finish your ballot? We need every single vote. Every single vote. Every single vote. And if you've already turned in your ballot and you finished it, you're not done. I'm sorry, but you're not done. We have 4 days left. 4 days left to make an impact, to determine the type of Michigan that you will live in, the type of Michigan that your children will live in, the type of Michigan that your children's children's children will live in. We have 4 days to make it happen. And you know what? I have a feeling we're going to make it happen. We're going to make it happen. Because the work that you're doing, every text message, every phone call, every door knock you make is solidifying justice for generations to come. And I'm so inspired by everyone here. And you know what I say? Let's go get them. Let's win this. Let's go. Thank you. Thank you so much. Let's go win.
Thank you. Now we are excited to introduce our Secretary of State, Jocelyn Benson.
All right, Ann Arbor, don't you look great tonight? Wow. So I need you to bottle all this up and save this enthusiasm because we've got a lot of work to do to save democracy. Are you with us? Listen, while we've been working this last week, and my job, as you know, Chief Election Officer for the state of Michigan. So right now, while we're also out there telling you how important it is to vote, I'm also working every day to make sure when you vote, your vote is counted. And let me just tell you something, because I'm going to bring up our great Attorney General Dana Nessel here in a second. And let me tell you, while we've been working, and while we worked in 2020 against an unprecedented effort to undermine the will of the people in this state, we successfully saw to it that every vote counted, that every voice was heard, and that the will of the people ruled the day in this state, because that's what democracy is all about. And while we were doing that, while we were working as a team to defend democracy, to ensure every vote was counted, you know what our opponents were doing? And you know what they were doing this week? Trying to invalidate the valid votes of citizens all across this state and in the city of Detroit. Not on our watch are we going to allow that to happen, right? We're going to work to make sure that people who stood in defense of democracy continue to lead this state, right? And that is why we say democracy is on the ballot this fall. And I need every single one of you here right now to think of 5 people who you know who haven't voted yet, and go up to them, and I need you to tell them in these last 4 days that they've got to vote for democracy. Say it with me. Vote for democracy. 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 All right, because that's what we're going to do. We're going to save democracy together. We're going to bring out everyone we know to save democracy together, because the beautiful thing is, even though we're in this moment, and it's real, we're in a moment, an inflection point that will determine the future of our fundamental rights and freedoms, not just in this state, but around the country. We're in a moment where history will look back and say, what did you do in these last 4 days? Did you do everything you could to get out the vote and make sure people, when they cast their ballot, knew that the choices they were making in our race for Secretary of State, in the race for Attorney General, for Governor, and up and down the ticket, these choices will affect our fundamental rights and freedoms and our democracy for the future? What did you do? How did you spend those last 4 days? And we all will answer that we did everything we can, leaving nothing on the field, because we know what's at stake. We know our democracy is on the line, and we are together going to defend and fight for democracy, right? Yeah! So I'm right there with you, and I'm ready to continue fighting for your voice, for your vote, and for our democracy. And when we do that, we will win. So let's put in the work. Let's save our democracy. Let's defend the right to vote of every citizen in this state, and not hand the keys of these offices over to people who will not stand by the voices of Michigan citizens and instead will advance their own agendas. Not on our watch. We're going to defend democracy, and together we will win. Thank you. I'm just going to take a point of personal privilege, and if I can, because you guys have done a great job, and thank you. But I could not have successfully defended democracy in 2020 without this person right here, and I need you all to know that. And I can't do it again without her. So I need you to do everything you can to ensure every citizen in this state knows that we've got to re-elect Dana Nessel to be our state's Attorney General. She will fight for our freedom, she will fight for our rights, she will fight for our democracy, and together we will defend it. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary Benson. All right, well, listen, let's start with this, Wolverines. Whether you are in the stadium or whether you're at the polls, can I get a let's go blue? Let's go blue! So the first time that I voted was in 1988 here in Ann Arbor. I stood in line for 3.5 hours to vote for Michael Dukakis, and I still don't regret it. It was still the right thing to do then, and it is now. But fortunately for all of you, guess what? None of you have to wait in line for 3.5 hours. So we've made some pretty significant progress, and so many of you guys have already voted. But there were so many things, I think, back then, as I would walk into Angel Hall, that I could not have contemplated, I could not have foreseen. And some of them would be rights that I couldn't have expected that we would ever have one day, but then also some rights that I never expected we would ever lose. And so there is so much on the line right now, and there's so much on the line when it comes to my particular race, my particular election. There are some stark contrasts and differences between me and the guy that I'm running against. And everybody should be aware of those things and know about them. For instance, when I took office, I took a case along with some of my fellow colleague AGs all the way to the United States Supreme Court to defend the Affordable Care Act so that young people could stay on their parents' insurance when they were at college. How many of you here are on their parents' insurance? The Republican AGs were the ones that were fighting it and trying to take that away from us. But they weren't able to do that because of Democratic AGs like myself. I happen to believe in something called climate change. And I am fighting each and every day to try to do everything we can to protect our air, to protect our water, to protect our climate, to make sure that there is a world for you guys to live in, not just tomorrow or next week, but years and years from now. Not my opponent. My opponent spends all his time sucking up to big oil and gas, and he mocks even the concept of climate change himself. He is a climate denier. That is the person. If we want to have a future, we can't have anybody like him in a pivotal office like this. Are you going to help me stay here? So there's another case that I took the United States Supreme Court as a private attorney. It's called Obergefell v. Hodges. Has anybody heard of it? It was the seminal case that allowed for same-sex marriage here in the state of Michigan and all across the United States. And then just earlier this year, I went to the Michigan Supreme Court and I argued a case called Roush World, where at long last, sexual orientation and gender identity could be included in our state Civil Rights Act. And now if you are LGBTQ, not only can you get married in this state, not only can you adopt children with your spouse, but you also can't get fired from your job. My opponent, however, refers to me, the first openly gay person to ever hold statewide office in Michigan, as he calls me General Groomer. That's his nickname for me. He wants to dissolve my marriage and the marriage of all same-sex couples in this state. He doesn't want to protect us. He wants to persecute us. Are we going to let somebody like that anywhere near the office of Michigan Attorney General? Another stark difference between us is this. You know, when I was studying over here, I remember reading a dystopian novel that was then fiction called The Handmaid's Tale. And it was about living in a society where women did not have equal rights under the law. And never in my lifetime did I imagine that we would see Roe v. Wade overturned. But now we have. And here's the difference. When Roe got overturned, myself, working together representing Governor Whitmer, we went to court and we made sure that that 1931 draconian law that barred abortion under almost any circumstance could not go into effect. And we are still there fighting for your rights. But here's the scary thing. If my opponent becomes Attorney General, he has vowed to prosecute as many people as possible under that 1931 law, and he'll have statewide authority to do it in every single county in the state of Michigan. It's not just that he doesn't believe that abortion is acceptable, even when there is a situation where there's rape, or even where there is incest, or even where it puts the health of a woman into jeopardy. He believes that a person should be prosecuted, whether it's a woman or her doctor or nurses, even if a person is going to die. Even in that event, he says that abortion is not acceptable under any set of circumstances, and he wants to prosecute. Are we going to let somebody like that be Michigan Attorney General? By the way, he also wants to ban birth control. Just saying. It was so extreme and so radical that he compares Plan B to illegal shipments of fentanyl.
All of a sudden, all the way back.
He is also a person that does not believe in the concept of democracy. And he is best known for filing the Antrim County lawsuit that tried to decertify the vote here in Michigan and undermine the will of 5.5 million voters in the 2020 election. He still has a case in court where he's trying to overturn the election of an election that occurred 2 years ago. But he's about to find out that there's another election that's coming up Tuesday, and he's going to lose that one as well. So what I'm saying to all of you here today is this. You can either have someone in this critical, crucial office that is a crusader for truth, justice, facts, science, and equality, or you can elect a conspiracy theorist who traffics in hate, in division, in violence, and in fascism. Choose your fighter, Wolverines. But choose wisely, because if we choose incorrectly, we're not going to have a chance to go back later and make another choice. It'll be too late because we'll have somebody in this crucial office who should be there to defend the will of the voters, who instead will be there to subvert the will of the voters, and we won't be able to go back. It's your choice. It's your choice who becomes President of the United States in 2024, not the choice of the person who is the Attorney General of the state of Michigan. Correct? It is my job to make sure that the legal processes are followed and that the will of the voters is heard. And that's what I'm going to do in 2022 this year, and that's what I'm going to do again in 2024 as your Attorney General. So, all right, before I hand this over, can I get a one more, let's go blue! Let's go blue! Let's go vote! Let's go vote! And let's win this thing, Wolverines! We got this!
Thank you so much. Next, it is my absolute pleasure to introduce another Michigan alum, our Lieutenant Governor, Garland Gilchrist.
When I say go blue, you say vote. Go blue! Vote! Go blue! Vote! Go blue! Vote! Look, that's what we're here to do, y'all. We are here to send a message all across Michigan, coming from Ann Arbor, coming from this campus, coming from the best university in the history of the world. They say as Michigan goes, so goes the country. Well, as the University of Michigan goes, so goes the state of Michigan. Am I right? Y'all, we have so much to vote for in this election. And everybody under the sound of my voice who's already cast a ballot, who's about to cast a ballot, or who's about to convince somebody else to cast a ballot has something to vote for in the future. If you want a Michigan that takes climate change seriously and wants to do something about it, will you go blue? If you want a Michigan that believes every person deserves economic opportunity, will you go blue? If you want a Michigan where every person has a right to a public education that is invested in more than it's ever been invested in the history of the state of Michigan, will you go blue? If you want a Michigan where college is more affordable, because we just signed into law scholarships for 4 out of every 5 Michigan high school seniors, so everyone can afford to go to the University of Michigan, will you say go blue? If you want a chance to get a great paying job where you're respected and protected at work, regardless of who you love, whereas the AG said you can't get fired because of who you are, will you go blue? Go blue! That's what's at stake. And I want to thank everybody in advance, because raise your hand if you already convinced somebody else to vote. I need to see a hell of a lot more hands in the next 4 days. I'm serious. Because the way that we grow this movement is one conversation at a time, one connection at a time, one phone call at a time, one door knocked at a time, one text message at a time, one social media message at a time, one argument at a time, one relationship at a time, one community at a time, one campus at a time, one Michigan for the future. That's what we do when we go blue. When we look back on this election, I want all of us to be proud of the role we played in this victory that lays a foundation for Michigan's future. We will be the people that left our state better than we found it, because we put in the work in 2022 that will last us for the next generation when we stand tall for democracy here in Michigan. So my challenge to you is, how many more people can you convince to vote today? How many more people can you convince to vote tomorrow? How many more can you convince to mobilize this weekend? Remind them of their voting power. Remind them of their potential to change the future and destiny of the state of Michigan, to keep us on a trajectory of growth, of opportunity, of inclusion, and of justice when you go blue. So thank all of you for being in the driver's seat as we drive toward this future. Thank all of you for choosing to stand with the democracy protectors on the Democratic side of the ballot. You heard from all of them. You heard from our Secretary of State, Jocelyn Benson. You heard from our Attorney General, Dana Nessel. You heard from our next Supreme Court Justice, Kyra Harris Bolden. You've heard from the Democrats we're going to put in the Michigan House and Senate majority for the first time in decades. And when we get that majority, we're going to pass meaningful gun violence prevention legislation. We're going to invest more in our schools. We're going to strengthen our state's response to the climate crisis. We're going to close more coal plants. We're going to protect choice. We're going to protect LGBT rights. We're going to make sure this is a Michigan where everybody has a place in our future. Thank you, University of Michigan. Let's go blue. Let's stand tall. Thank
you. Gotta bring it down a bit there. Next, we have the honor of introducing our governor, Gretchen Whitmer. She's been a fighter for us from the beginning, and we are honored to re-elect her this November.
Maybe I was talking about the football game last Saturday. You won, go blue, okay? But now it's time to focus on our shared priorities, right? We've got 4 days until a really big election. And I know we have a tendency to only tune in when there's a presidential election. But who your governor is, who your lieutenant governor is, who your secretary of state, your attorney general are, your Supreme Court, impact your lives every single day. From the minute you wake up and turn on your tap water and hope that it is clean enough to be healthy, to when you jump in your car and go on the roads, yes, those damn roads that I'm fixing, to whether or not you can afford to get the education to get a good paying job, right? So this is a big election we got coming up. I am proud of the work that Garland and I and the Democrats in Lansing have done on behalf of the people of this state. I am proud that it's my lawsuit that is protecting women's rights to our own bodies. I am glad that it's my veto pen that's protecting our voting rights right now. And I'm glad that it's me writing the education budget, not Betsy DeVos. But make no mistake, all of this is at risk in this upcoming election. We got 4 days, and I'm looking at every single one of you, and my 2 Wolverines for my own household as well. And every one of you has a powerful voice and vote. Every one of you can make a difference in this election in the next 4 days. Every one of you has people who love you and respect you, whether it's in your calc class and you're stressing for that exam on Monday night like my youngest daughter is, or it is the people that you tailgate with, right? You can still vote in Michigan right now. You can register to vote and cast that ballot right now. Did you know that?
All right, well, I'm proud of you, but guess what? Some of your friends don't know that. So I need you to tell them. I need you to use your voice. I need you to make sure that we don't wake up on Wednesday morning of next week and see fundamental rights eviscerated, see voting rights at risk, see all the investments we've made to improve people's quality of life at risk as well. You got me? Yeah! Because I got you, Wolverines. So listen, I'll stay in this arena and I'll take all the crap they throw my way. You know I was going to say something different, right? I cleaned it up. But I'll take all the ugliness that comes my way, and I will stand my ground and fight for the people of this state, no matter who they are, where they come from, what they look like, who they love, or how they identify. I will fight for them. I just need amazing Blue Army who's got my back. You got me? So, we have got a wonderful special guest. Someone who I have gotten to know and I respect, and he is a brand new Michigander. He and Chasten and their twins are calling Michigan home now. And I am proud to do the work. He is what I like to call the nation's fix the damn roads guy. So, Wolverines, let's make some noise for Pete Buttigieg!
Michigan! I even brought a shark. All right, we got it all. Thank you so much for the warm welcome. I am proud to be one of the newest Michigan Democrats, and I was proud to cast my vote for Governor Gretchen Whitmer and all of these great Democrats up and down the ballot. And now I'm here to ask for your help. I've been looking forward to this one. I even wrote some stuff down, which I don't usually do. I'm a lot of practice with the political speeches because I'm usually just busy, you know, fixing the damn roads and stuff. But I had to take a day away from the day job to be here with these great candidates and to be here with you to remind you how unbelievably important this moment is and to remind you how unbelievably important you are. I can't even begin to tell you how much is at stake. And I think we all feel it. We know this election is important. Yes, every election is important, but we know that our moment, this moment, is one of enormous peril for our country. But I want to argue that it's also a moment of enormous promise. Look, we're so close to the cliff that we can look over it and see that it's a long way down and see that we're not very far from it. But if we turn and face the higher heights, we could be the generations that bring America and Michigan to a better place than we've ever been at before. And that starts with good leadership like the folks you see right now. We know we live in a moment of enormous upheaval, disturbing things happening across the country. Not just the pandemic that almost destroyed our economy. And by the way, that historic low unemployment that you're seeing right now, that didn't just happen. That's because of the leadership of our president and people like Governor Gretchen Whitmer who acted to create and restore jobs here in Michigan and around the country. But we know that it's a long march back. And that would have been tumultuous even if it came against a normal backdrop in the social and political life of this country. But of course, 2020 was anything but. We had already seen our country divided, even divided by those who were supposed to unite us, the leaders in the highest offices in the land, culminating just days before the election in an assault on the Capitol. And those effects have hardly gone away. As we saw just a few days ago in the violent attack on the spouse of the Speaker. So let's be clear, saying something that should go without saying, but apparently it has to be said right now. When political violence rears its ugly head anywhere in the United States of America, the only proper response is unified, swift, unambiguous, bipartisan condemnation. That shouldn't be hard. But here we are, things getting more fanatical and dangerous, not just in weird corners of the internet, but on the mouths of elected officials and would-be elected officials, like Tudor Dixon, who wants to be your next governor, and I'm pretty sure... And worse, we see the long tail of a takeover in our courts that has been years in the making, raising the very real question, especially after the Dobbs decision, of whether something has changed in the course of American history, a national story which for the last 250 years has been about every generation seeing more prosperity, more freedom, and more rights than the generation that came before. Not a straight line, sometimes a zigzag, but that has been the American story. And then we had the decision coming down from the court that is forcing us to ask the very real question of whether these generations now living in America will be the ones to witness the high watermark of rights and freedoms in this country. That's what's at stake. But we will not let that happen, will we?
No.
Many are asking if we are living here in America, here in the world's most consequential democracy, whether we would be living through the moment when America stopped even trying to live up to the name. But we're not going to let that happen, are we?
No!
So what I want to remind you of is not just what we're trying to prevent, but what we're trying to protect. Not just what we're trying to avoid, but what we have a chance to build right now. Achievements like changing the course of our economy for the better. Achievements and promises kept like putting a highly qualified black woman justice on the United States Supreme Court. Like delivering the most important climate legislation passed by any country anywhere ever. We did that. And yes, achievements like doing what the last administration promised to do and failed to do, a generational investment in America's infrastructure so that all of us can count on a cleaner, better, safer economy and fix the damn roads. So that's the first thing I want you to remember. With all this frightening stuff swirling out there, a lot of really good stuff is getting done. The second thing I want you to remember is that the American people and the people of Michigan are with us already on issue after issue after issue. On the major issues of today, don't let anybody make you feel like you're part of some embattled minority of public opinion. We represent the American people in our beliefs and in our values. Most Americans believe in a woman's right to choose and expect us to stand up and protect. Like most Americans, we believe corporations and the wealthy have not been paying their fair share in taxes, and we know in this economic environment, in this global fight against inflation, it's exactly the wrong time for Republican plans to double down on tax cuts for the rich, blow up the deficit, and make inflation worse. We're with the majority of the American people on the idea that Social Security and Medicare are hard-earned benefits and deserve to be intact by the time I'm retiring and by the time you're retiring, and will not back down in fighting for it. We are on the right side, not just of history, but of the American people, when we say that the most important thing we can do for kids at school is not worry about whether they're going home to two moms or two dads, or whether they read a book that might teach them something about American history, but whether they get home safe at all. That's what we stand for. The American people aren't demanding culture wars in our schools. They're looking for well-funded schools, which is exactly what the governor has delivered with record funding for K-12 education here in this state. Don't even get me started on student loans. The American people are with us on making sure we do the right thing. We are here for actually getting stuff done. Just ask the governor. Bipartisan problem solving. 900 plus bills that she was able to bring people together across the aisle to get done. Real public safety, which is not about scaremongering and scapegoating, is about making sure resources, including mental health resources, get to where they need to go, and illegal guns come off our street. Your state leadership did that. Here's the other thing. We Midwesterners, I would like to say, are practical people. We look for strong and practical leaders. And it is extraordinary to see the problem-solving spirit of the strong women who are leading your statewide ticket. That's why I'm proud to be here with Dana Nessel, who cares about the rule of law. Proud to be here with Jocelyn Benson, who understands that what makes America America is democracy. Proud to be here with your great governor. And also, you have an amazing lieutenant governor in Garland Gilchrist. And I love it. Did you know that you have the most flippable House and Senate chamber in America? What if you sent these great leaders a Democratic majority in the House and Senate to help them get even more done? That's what we represent. And take it from somebody whose marriage depends on a single vote on the U.S. Supreme Court. There are unbelievably practical and important consequences to these elections. Ask anyone on Medicare now who can now get insulin for $35 a month because Democrats got that done. And ask anyone who's not on Medicare who could have insulin for $35 a month if we sent more Democrats to the House of Representatives and the U.S. Senate. It's common sense. Common sense is on our side. You got to contrast this to what the GOP has become, especially under the defeated former president. Look very closely at which promises they kept and which promises they broke. Because they made a lot of promises and they kept some of them. Not most of them. They didn't drain the swamp. They didn't do an infrastructure bill, as they said they were going to do. They didn't even build that stupid wall they were talking about. They only kept two promises, and that shows you the kinds of things they actually care about. They promised to cut taxes on the wealthy, and they did. They promised to take away a woman's right to choose, and they did. That's what they prioritize, and there's more where that came from if they take over. You'll notice they haven't laid out much of an agenda in terms of actually solving big problems, even the ones they want to talk about the most because they think it helps them politically. Nobody can tell me what their plan actually is on immigration. Nobody can tell us what they're proposing on safety. Matter of fact, Tudor Dixon's budget would cut the main source of funding for public safety in the state of Michigan. No one can tell us what their plan is on inflation. I just saw a member on TV today claiming that Republicans are focused on addressing the crises of the day. And the more I thought about it, I realized what their focus isn't on solving the issues. Their focus is on mentioning the issues. They'll mention them all day long. But we're the ones with actual solutions. And yes, it's harder to get actual solutions done, but that's what we're doing. And it's showing results. So let's stay on the right path. Now, when I say Republicans, I do want to be clear. I don't mean ordinary Republicans around America. Because if you ask regular Americans, even a majority of Republicans agree with us that the wealthy are getting away with too much when it comes to taxes. Even a majority of Republicans agree with us that at the very least we ought to have background checks for people trying to get a deadly weapon. A majority of Republicans even agree that my marriage and Dana Nessel's marriage counts just as much as any other marriage in this country. It's Washington Republicans who are out of touch with most Americans. Only in Washington. Do I run into a Republican member of Congress who will shake my hands, ask how my spouse and kids are doing, and then go to the floor of the House the next day and vote against my marriage? By the way, I saw that my old pal Mike Pence is here in Michigan campaigning too, just like that. And I just keep thinking, I would never think of myself as fit to pronounce on whether he and his wife ought to stay married. What makes him think he's got business telling me whether or not my husband and I ought to stay married? Anyway, my point is, what the GOP has become in Washington and in the candidates they're putting up is out of step, even with a lot of members of their own party, which is why our ever-expanding tent welcomes in independents and all of those future former Republicans out there who feel politically homeless today. Comes down to this. Some people are about banning books, and some people are about building bridges. Sign me up for building bridges. Remember that the American people are on our side. Remember what we are building. Remember what we are protecting. And at the end of the day, what we are actually doing right now is something we'll be proud of for the rest of our lives. Because the whole idea of democracy is we're in this together. We do, in fact, live in the same reality, whether people see it or not. We live in the same country. We are subject to the same laws, the same economy, and we share the same fate. Which is why we participate in the same process, namely the election process, and expect politicians to abide by the result, just like we abide by the laws that they pass. That's the country that I signed up to serve when I raised my right hand. And I tell you, when I wound up in Afghanistan and we're getting ready to go on a vehicle movement outside the wire, nobody said, hold on, sir, I just need to know real quick, you Republican or a Democrat? And when your dad immigrated, was he legal or not? And are you going home to a girlfriend or a boyfriend? The only question that mattered was, could we trust each other with our lives? Yes. And the same is true for the entire country. So by the time my son and my daughter are old enough to ask, I want to tell them, yes, we did what it took to make sure that the air was clean and the climate was safe for you. I want to say, yes, we did what it took to make sure that your generation has more rights and freedoms than mine and not less. And I want to say, yes, we did what it took to make sure that you live in a stable democracy that leads the world. That's what we're doing. I don't want to get too philosophical on you, but this is a university, so I just want to point out. The world has never actually seen a full-scale, multiracial, fully diverse, fully inclusive, fully representative democratic republic. We've been working on it for 250 years, but it's never all the way happened. But it could. It could happen in our lifetimes. You could make that happen. The world needs to see that happen. It will only happen if it happens in America, and it will only happen in America if it happens in our time. If it does, it will be as important a contribution to humanity as the Declaration of Independence itself. That's what you're helping build. So are you ready to get out there and knock on some doors? Are you ready to pick up the phone and call some people and ask them to vote? Are you ready to make sure that we live in a country that we can be proud of for the rest of our lives? Then thanks to you, I'm going to get up on Wednesday morning and place some really happy, congratulatory phone calls to your governor and all of these great Democrats up the ballot. Thank you for being here. Thank you for caring. Let's get out there and make this happen.
Check my name.
If
friend Su Sheng. Is she here?
Baby, how you feeling?
Girl, I need to kick your ass.
Gotta take a deep breath, time to focus on you. All the big fights, long nights that you've been through. I got a bottle of tequila, I've been saving for you. Boss up and change your life. You can have it all, no sacrifice. I know we did you wrong, we can make it right. So go and let it all hang out tonight. Cause we don't love you anymore. So walk your fine ass out the door.
Camera's ready.